What you been doing, Bob? Haven't heard from you. This is kind of a catch-all, catch-up video. 59 has been sold and left. 64 Silver K is coming over for some brake work. And the C that was here is gone. I started to do a little bit on the J here. I replaced the roof rail gaskets with new pieces from Query, and it's not a bad job, but you might as well figure that you're going to have to probably adjust the window fit, because the new gaskets will be thicker than the gaskets that you took off, and they'll have a tendency to want to push the window, in this case, out. And we also installed new trunk gaskets on the black J and the white J. And pretty easy job. Don't really have to worry too much about leakage, because you see that they've got a nice drain channel built in here, and but just like the windows, you put on a new thicker gasket, you'll probably have to adjust the trunk catch, and we did on both of these cars. This is the passenger side, and I'm not happy enough. That's a pretty good gap in there, and I can see already the problem is the window goes too high, and this gasket up here is forcing the top of the window out. Here's the passenger side. The trick was, on this one, was to get the front up high enough and the back low enough so it would cock, and that moved this window back a little. It also took care of the in and out. This is the driver's side. I had the same issue here, and you can see I've lowered the window, and I've gotten a real good fit. I suppose, you know, the old roof rail gasket had worn and collapsed, and so the window was happier higher. Now, you put in new here, you're probably going to have to lower your glass a little. That's not hard to do. You take off the door panel, and you've got a stop here, a stop there, and play with it. After doing a lot of work on this car, you might remember it had dual floors on here. The guy I bought it from, well, he had died, and his wife wanted it sold. And there's nobody to ask, how well did the dual floors work? One of the problems, we couldn't get the gas pedal to adjust at all. No matter how we moved the linkage around, I could never get wide open throttle. And it also didn't have the port for the vacuum doors, heater doors, and the power brake booster. So I said, I'm just going back to a a K type. And that's what you see here. This is a K carburetor, low restriction air filter. You can see the tap at the back, which is your standard vacuum port for booster. And I had to change the valve covers because the valve covers he had on it were chrome Edelbrock's with no provision for. Why are you putting all this 64 stuff on a 63? Well, you might remember that this is not a J engine, and the car did not come with short rams or headers or carburetors. So, you know, if we're going to make it into a nice, reliable driver, it's kind of like a Sport J. And I've been chasing a very small transmission leak. Yeah. I got a new pan, so this is dead flat. Yeah. It's got a drain plug in it, which makes it real easy for removal. This is one of those reusable gaskets. It was recommended to me, and so I put it on, and I still had the leak. Was it the gasket? Well, my next effort is going to be a regular cork gasket. I'm going to put it on the pan, we're going to torque it down, then we're going to take it right back off, and then we're going to look for impressions all the way around to make sure that I'm getting uniform sealing. Don Verity also had a thought. He said, you know, people get into these things and sometimes they lose the transmission pan bolt and they just get something else. Well, some of these holes in here are blind, and so if they get the wrong bolt too long, it'll bottom out before it seats and you'll have a leak. Well, I checked. All the bolts are the same length, and the depth of the blind holes is deeper than the bolts are long. But it was a good thought. So I'm going to pop this regular cork rubber gasket on and then look for impressions all the way around. Well, it was a good idea. I installed the pan and with the gasket, and I verified the gasket was lined up on all the holes, and I torqued, it says 150, and all the bolts felt real good. And the idea was, now let's look at the gasket and see what we've got for imprints and see if it's lighter in one spot than another, which would tell you you've got unequal clamping. It was a good idea, but there's no imprint on the gasket. So, an idea didn't work. Torque reference 150 inch-pounds. And there you go. You want to talk about loose throttle pivots. Look at this one. Yep. We'll change that. That is what you call mighty wallered out. Worn out? I hadn't noticed till I looked at it. It was worn right through. So this is the J bracket. I was wondering if that groove had grown too big. And so I installed it and I put the new clip in and it spit it right out. So, well, I just got spare brackets. Look at this. They're all, well, the J, they're different. Yeah, look at that. I was able to use one of the other style. If you look at the loading, it's on that side of the bracket. So it's got lots of wear surface. That should never wear out. You know what this is for? That, by the way, is a 7/16. You need this to go in the back and under the rams in order to catch the bolt that holds the throttle to the rams. There she is. See it down there? There's a D slot on that piece. And it goes up from the shaft, and there it is right there. And all the mucking around I did here, I managed to loosen that enough and jar it so it fell off. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not that hard. There's another view of that critter. And that piece right there, that's the throttle stop. You go too far and it hits the ram, and so properly adjusted, you can't have your carburetor stuck wide open. In order to set the throttle linkage, you look under the fuel section in the service manual. This is page 1424, and it tells you how to do that. Yeah, assemble throttle linkage. Yes, of course, get it so the choke is off. With the lock nuts loose, insert a 3/16 inch rod, approximately 10 inches long. Transmission rod, and disconnect the accelerator pedal and adjust to 113 to 115. Well, I don't have any welding rod out here, so I'm looking and taking screwdrivers. Maybe I've got one long enough. No, not that thin. Well, guess what? It's a chainsaw file. Just happens to be 3/16, and it's long enough to fit into that throttle pivot to lock that down. This is the difference between 113 and 115 degrees. Hardly anything. This This is the third car that I've checked for gas pedal angle. And none of the gas pedals, which work perfectly fine, stand up tall enough. The angle is way more than 115 degrees. I'm not sure it matters that much.